the joys of what God offers today. So the invitation for the third candle, as we light the three candles, is the following. Today we light three candles. The first candle reminds us that Advent is a time to listen with faithful, attentive expectation. The second candle invites us to receive God's peace. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. And the third candle today is an invitation to find your joy in the Lord, no matter what the circumstances are. The joy of Advent is more than just superficial joy that comes and goes as tides. The incarnate Lord is the source of perpetual joy. This joy springs from the fountain of life in us that wakes us up so that we can find joy in everything around us. This morning, we are going to start this meditation by listening to a beautiful version of I Do Not Stand at My Grave and Weep, a song that invites us to become aware of God's presence all around us.
Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am a thousand winds that blow. I am the diamond glint on snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle, gentle autumn rain. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. When you awake in the morning hush, I am the swift uplifting rush of quiet birds in circling flight. I am the soft, soft starlight, starlight at night. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep.
So this morning, we are going to go on a quick retreat. I am in the middle of a retreat at the Abbey of Gethsemane in Kentucky. So I will be presenting this Wednesday contemplative worship from here. For just a little bit background, you can see it's from 1848, and it's a beautiful sanctuary and a monastery that can at least accommodate 200 monks. You can see it's a bigger complex. And at this moment, they have about 30 monks that are permanently on the site, and they welcome people for retreat. And it's a wonderful opportunity to join them. As you arrive at the monastery, they welcome you with the following words: "Let all guests that come be received like Christ." And you can see that is the rule of St. Benedict, and they also follow the rule of St. Benedict, that is that they have devotional periods 7 times a day, and that they follow strictly. The first one is at 3:15, and then it goes on with the last one at 7:30. It is an experience to be with them and to join with them in the worship. They do most of the worship in a singing style, um, and there is a picture of the monks that are here at the monastery. So I decided I'm going to share with you an experience that I had yesterday as I walked on a small, beautiful path of statues. So I want to invite you to walk with me as I walk the path, and may the invitation for your own life and your own journey be open to be accompanied by God in your journey. The first thing that was very interesting to me that I noticed was that the stepping stones for a long while was to me an opportunity to practice presence on the journey. So as I started the road and the path, I tried to stop at every one of the stepping stones and just becoming aware of where I am, and then the following, and then the following, to practice presence, to be fully where I am and not focusing on what I thought was just one um, huge, beautiful, well-known statue at the end that I was interested in having a look at. But it surprised me, as life is full of surprises. So the first realization for me is it was really something to realize how it is to be on the journey of life and being aware of every step, not rushing to the end, but that every part of the journey is as important as the rest, and that we are invited to stay present. Just as you start the journey after the review of the stepping stones, I came across this small pond, and there was on the right hand side a beautiful rock where I could sit and for a while just ponder and look at the reflections on the lake and or on the small pond. And I used it as an opportunity to ask myself, what are the reflections of my inner life at this moment? My awareness open and attentive to find out which clouds are there, what are the blue skies that I experience, what are the colors in my inner world and my thoughts, in my emotions, in my will, in my body. What would the colors be? And what would the weather pattern be if you could sit and see the reflections of your inner life at this moment? How clear would it be? Are you open and attentive to the inner world and our awareness, inviting us to become aware of what we find without judging what we find, just being aware and bringing it in the presence of God, really experiencing some of the welcoming presence of God. And then, just as I walked a little bit further on the path, I saw, oh, there's a statue. I thought, is that the statue? But there was a bench inviting me to sit down, isn't it? You can just see how inviting that small bench is. So I moved and I sat down on the bench and just relaxed for that while. And the statue was something beautiful. The statue was a statue of Jesus tending the sheep, the good shepherd. And just after being aware of my inner world, it was really such a relief just to sit and be with the good shepherd. And the loving hand of the good shepherd just ready to pat me and to caress and to welcome. You can see the little sheep pushing against the good shepherd, and the attentiveness of the good shepherd to the sheep. God's presence, when we become aware of our inner world, we experience something of peace. That was the next part of the journey that I passed. There was a sign called Pax, and that's the Roman for peace. And I became aware of what we thought of last time, that peace is not the absence of any unwelcome thoughts or emotions, but to bring it all in the presence of God, to really open up to the deeper peace, the peace that holds us all and all the emotions and thoughts. And I walked further on the path, and I became aware of all the beautiful statues on the road, the, the natural statues in nature. And this was a very interesting how this plant just grew up from the ground, made a loop, and went back into the ground again, um, and creating that circle from growing from the ground up and down again. Then I walked on, and there was another statue. So interesting, it was made of metal. I haven't seen one like this before. There was something like a windmill, a wind pump at the back, and the star looking like the barn star that we find on many houses. You can see it is a Christmas scene. But what made this so interesting is that many of the characters in the scene were American characters. For instance, you'll see there is a cowboy lifting his hat on the on the horse. There is a reindeer on the right-hand side. There is actually a squirrel that you can't see now very clearly in front, and also a rabbit. Um, the way that we are open to the incarnate presence of Christ in our context. That's actually where the star leads us to experience God present in this room, in this life, in this house, and how welcoming am I where I am. A bit further down the road, I came across this rock, and it was very interesting to see that as I wanted to pass, I said, well, isn't that something in the rock? Oh, it is. There was a face in the rock, and interesting that one eye is actually fungi. Um, and I nearly walked past it, and I again became aware of the need to walk attentively, but with another invitation, not just to see the rock, but to see the cosmic Christ in the rock, to be open to God's presence in rocks, in leaves, in trees, in people. And so many times we walk past God's presence, and and the connection you can see of this beautiful statue naturally, an inviting connection with Christ wherever we go. And just a bit further on, somebody made a cross on one of the rocks with exactly where a fungi also grew. A bit further on, I came across the statue of Mary. And at that time, I was pondering the leaves, and I saw the leaves lying all over. And for that moment, I became aware of the loss that Mary experienced in her life. Very early on, she had to let go of Jesus when he was 12 years old. And then the whole time, it was an invitation to let go as far as letting Jesus die on the cross and the deep grief that she experienced. But all the leaves that fell and all the grief was also giving life. as I realized the leaves now fell down on the ground and was life-giving. And that is really also an invitation for our grief and our loss, that we really open up to the possibility that our grief and our loss could be life-giving. And in the not judging it and not rejecting grief, we become open to the possibility of finding Christ's presence, life-giving presence in the grief and in the loss. A bit further on, I came across this small angel inviting me to another path. And on the way on that path, it says, "My eyes always on the Lord." And then a very interesting sentence. You can see the eye of love. So the first eye referring to a loving gaze, the loving gaze of God towards us, and our loving gaze towards the Lord, the eye of love. And then the I referring to me and referring to the deeper I of love, the I am of love, that is my real self, and becoming aware of the I of love, of our deepest being as love. That is who we truly are. And then a very interesting one, the A of love. You know, that is a way of affirming, of saying yes, like in a meeting, say yes or say A. Um, the yes of love. Isn't that beautiful? An invitation to live the day with our eyes of love, being love, and saying yes. Saying yes to life, saying yes to people, and saying yes to where I am, no matter where it is. As you can see, there is on the right-hand side the small plaque, and then here we find a statue of Jesus with of Mary and Jesus. And it's very interesting how many times I found, especially in this monastery, the Abbey of Gethsemane, um, versions of Jesus as an infant. And I read a beautiful piece about that, of God is always a God of new beginnings, of new seasons, of every time a new day, of a new year, a new flower every year, and the cycles. But God, the God love, the God that loves infancy and new life and new beginnings. So it was to me a very interesting perspective, of Mary holding the child lovingly and showing Jesus to us, so that we can become aware and attentive of new life that Jesus offers us. A bit further on the same path, I found this very interesting version of Jesus as a carpenter, and you can see some of the tools that the carpenter uses. And I became aware of the fact that the way that Jesus works with us is by really revealing who we really are in the depth of our beings. And if he sees so much um, possibility in us, and as he works with the wood, with love, he reveals who we really are. And at that moment, I also became aware of the sound of a woodpecker around, and there was a tree not far from there, another carpenter doing his job, and just becoming aware of this statue that this carpenter, the woodpecker, created, in the beauty and uniqueness of it. The whole time I was surprised by small, beautiful realizations of this purple fungi. I've never seen this, and it was the only very, very small part of the path. You can only pick it up if you're really attentive. And then in that attentive presence, it just bursts with the beauty of the purple color. And purple, to me, something of spirituality, and it was a little bit hidden under the leaves. I had to take the leaves off to reveal the purple, and I put the leaves back afterwards again, because this fungi, this purple, grew just under the leaves in the moss and in the beautiful area where the shadows were, where our spirituality grows. Then I came across the small version of St. Francis that loves, um, you know, perhaps very well, that it is well known that he loved nature so much. And I saw all the trees with socks on, like this one. There were moss on all over. Every tree had a green sock on. And then there was this bigger statue of St. Francis with a bird on his shoulder, and also other. You can, let me go back and see. There are also on the ground versions of other animals and birds. But I saw that the woodpeckers already was already busy with St. Francis, and I got the impression of St. Francis really loving the way that they are working on him, doing their nature job on him, but the love of nature, the openness to nature, and the welcoming of nature. There was also a cardinal on the ground that was really beautiful. Then I came across this surprising small house, and I thought it was a restroom, but it wasn't. It was called a Rosary House Shelter. And if you go inside, you find this very interesting place full of small messages and prayers. And it was such an experience in a holy place to walk into the heart of so many people that wrote a few things down. There were also small statues, like this one really also caught my attention. Live contemplation, become aware of who you already are. That is what contemplation is at the heart of it. We become who we are. And then this mindful meditation that we use in loving kindness meditation, may I be well, may I be loved, may I be at peace, may I be whole, and may that also be true for you. There were also people that wrote down really deep feelings and emotions of pain and sorrow that they had to work through. And it was really something very, very special to have a small insight deep into the heart of people, where they found that God welcomed them in their grief and in their sorrow, and really experiencing the welcoming, accepting love of God. There were a few written notes that I could see that was young people writing it, that wrote it. For instance, this one, God rocks. That's a beautiful one. Then, just around the corner, there was this fabulous, fabulous statue of Mary, and it's very interesting. It's a huge piece of marble being cut with flowing lines, and it is high in the air as if she was floating. Although um, it's interesting that the name of the statue is Trees, She Walks with God. And you can see the tree and walking with God both in that picture. On the one hand, like a pillar, strong and rooted. On the other hand, moving with God, flowing with God, with the flowing lines. And I think that's also the invitation for us, how we proceed and go through life. On the one hand, um, the rootedness in God and stability in God, like a tree, but also floating in the movement and the power of the Spirit. And just next to it, there was like this very interesting plaque saying, for all that has been, thanks. To all that shall be, yes. This is really what spirituality is in a huge part, is to be able to say, for all that has been, thank you. And to all that shall be, yes. Again, the word yes, saying yes, because God will be with you and God was with you in whatever you experience. So we can be fully attentive in this moment. There were also these beautiful pictures of the essence of a tree that made me aware of the essence of who we are and the wonderful opportunity that we have in contemplation to contemplate who we really are. If we throw off all our superficial beliefs and what we sometimes show the world, but contemplation is coming back to the root of our being, who we are in God, holy and divine in God. Then I came to this beautiful statue um, of Walker Hancock, um, and it was really very, very interesting. I know the name of the abbey is the Abbey of Gethsemane, and you see here the disciples sleeping, all three of them, in different ways that you can see that they are resting. And Jesus asked them to be attentive and to be awake and to be aware and to pray, but they couldn't. They slept. And I just thought, wow, this is interesting that they only have that. And then suddenly I looked up and I saw a bit higher up the hill, you can see Jesus standing there with his hands on his eyes, and you can see the view from the sleeping disciples and Jesus with his hands over his face in agony and worry, and they are sleeping. And this is from the view from Jesus in agony and the sleeping disciples. For me, it was a picture of how my inner life is many times, that um, Christ's presence in me invites me, and sometimes Christ feel the the pain of what's going on in the world and in other people's lives, and also in my own life, things that are not in line with the way that God wants us to live. But how are we? Many times I'm sleeping and I'm not attentive to the the heart of Jesus in my being. And I heard the invitation to wake up, to wake up, and to wake up to Christ in me. And that was just a beautiful statue on the way, as that um, piece of wood just showed the beauty. Even in the decay, there was a beauty. Um, and that's where the trail ends. And it ended with this beautiful angel um, giving a blessing with a cross. And just a little bit on, there was a monk asking for a sign of gratitude. And I really felt so much gratitude for the wonderful opportunity to be able to walk there and to be present there. Um, so I walked further, and on my way back, the road back, I took a shortcut. I stumbled across this um, upon this glasses, and I thought, wow, now this is interesting. How could I just think about these glasses? And I thought maybe it is an invitation for me to say, live today with different glasses, a different way of seeing. Put the glasses on today and look for statues the whole path. So I was so intrigued. Yes, maybe that's the way. Every day there are statues that we find in people and in our house and in life and outside in nature. And the statues reveal themselves to us, and we find Christ in the statues. And as synchronicity and God's surprises always are, I just walked about 30 meters on. You see, there's a tree on the left hand side. At that tree, I saw these weird plants that looked like small statues. Just when I pondered the concept of statues, they were all over next to the stream. There's a small stream, and the whole pathway, it was full of these statues, reminding me to be aware and attentive. St. Bernard said, "You will discover things in the woods that you would never found in books. Stones and trees will teach you things you never heard from your school teachers." May you be open and attentive today to the way that God leads us and reveals God's self to us through the statues in your life.